Good evening, fourth graders, and welcome to another flipped lesson. Tonight's flipped lesson is going to be on decimals. We just finished a unit on fractions, and in this lesson we're going to find that decimals and fractions are very closely related to one another. So in your notebooks, under the vocabulary section, please write these two definitions. The definition for decimal, and then the definition for the decimal point. A decimal is very similar to a fraction. So in the definition it says, like fractions, a decimal describes the number of equal parts a whole number is divided into and the number of those parts that's being described. So in my example, 1 over 10, it's broken up into 10 equal parts, and 1 is the number that we're focusing on, or the number that's being described. And then a decimal point is the point that separates the whole number from the parts of a whole. So take a moment right now and copy these definitions down in your notebook. The next thing that we're going to talk about is each place value before the decimal point, and then the place values that come after the decimal point. So we know that in a whole number, the first number is in the ones place. The number next to the ones place, going to the left, is the tens place, and then the number to the left of the tens place is the hundreds place. So it goes the hundreds, the tens, and the ones place. After the decimal point, we have the tenths place, and we show that by making a fraction that looks like this. 1 out of 10, right? One piece out of 10 equal pieces. And then next to the tenths place is the hundredths place, and we represent that by saying 1 out of 100. And then if we go even further, we have 1 out of 1,000, which is the thousandths place. I have this down and I have copy next to it. I want you to put this in the practice section. So go ahead and copy this down and put it in the practice section of your notebook. I kept the place value chart for numbers that come before the decimal point and the numbers that come after the decimal point, because it just helps to remind me where the numbers go. So if I have a number right after the decimal point, it's talking about numbers in the tenths place, which really means a certain number out of 10. If it's 2 places out beyond the decimal point, that's going to be the hundredths place, and that just reminds me that it's 1 out of 100. And then, again, 3 steps away from the decimal point would be the thousandths place, which is really 1 out of 1,000. So what does this mean? If I have a number right after the decimal point, and I'm looking at my place value chart, I know that it's out of 10 equal pieces, because it's not quite a whole yet. So if it's 2 right after the decimal point, that really equals 2 tenths, because this is the tenths place value. So this, as a fraction, would look like this. 2 out of 10, or 2 tenths. Because it's in the tenths place value, we say the number and then what place value it's in. So 2 tenths. And we show the fraction like this. So if I have 10 equal pieces, I am only focused on 2 of them. So I'm only looking at 2 of the equal pieces. Let's take a look at some other examples. So we have a pizza is cut into 10 equal parts. Miss Kessler ate 3 of the pieces of pizza. What is the amount of pizza that she ate? So if I ate 3 pieces and the pizza was cut into 10 equal pieces, I know that my fraction is 3 over 10. But if I want to represent 3/10 as a decimal, I have to remember that the whole number comes first, and there is no whole number in this because it's just a fraction. And then comes my decimal point. Remember, because my decimal point separates my whole number from the part of a whole. And I'm looking at this fraction and I see 3/10. Remember, the first place right after the decimal point is my tenths place. So if 3/10 is here in my fraction, then when I go to the next place value after my decimal point, that's going to be the number that I put there. So I have 3. So this decimal says the same as this fraction. They both say 3/10. Let's look at the next one. An orange is broken into 10 equal pieces. So again, I have my denominator of 10. Jason took 4 of the pieces for himself. What is the amount he took from the orange? He took 4/10 of the orange. Now if I want to represent that as a decimal, again, I have my whole number, and the whole number here is 0 because there is no whole number. Decimal point, because the decimal point separates the whole number from my fraction, or my part of my whole. And then I tell you how many tenths he has, because that's the next place value after my decimal point. So I have decimal point 4, because the 4 is in the tenths place. And if I'm looking at my fraction and there's a 10 in my denominator, that tells me that it's 4 out of 10 equal pieces, or 4 in the tenths place. Now it's time for you to practice. In your practice section, you might not have enough space, so go into your global section to complete this. You have 6 problems. 3 of the problems that you're going to do is going to be changing a fraction into a decimal. The other 3 problems, you're going to take a decimal and you're going to turn it into a fraction. Remember, you can go back in the video at any time to review how to do this. Pause it, rewind, watch it again, watch it as many times as you need. The place value chart that we looked at on a few slides ago will help you tremendously. Have fun. Come in tomorrow with questions or suggestions. Have a good night.